Good morning, everyone. And yesterday we could only go one topic from the text, and today we will go from the second topic. And from the first topic, we had like few different parts inside the first topic. So we already went through that. So now we go through the second topic. And since we were not able to go quite a lot yesterday, I thought maybe instead of going word by word, maybe it will be easier if we just go through the main meaning of the text. And in the second topic, where it's from the first page, as for the Dharma, I would like to share with you all the present time. So here we are talking about the main practice, and when we are doing a complete practice, we need to have like three different parts of our practice. So we need to have the preparation, and we need to have the main practice, and then we need to have the follow-through practice. And for in our general life also, whenever we do something like a grand event or meeting or whatever, first before we do that, we need to have a preparation for that. We cannot just start with the meeting, or we cannot just start with whatever. First we need to prepare for that. So just like that, even for our practice, first we need to have the preparation. And then when the preparation is complete, then we have to perform the main activities. Whether it is an event, whether it is a meeting, whether it is a wedding or whatever. And then after that, when it is done again, then we have to, when it is complete, then we have to look through it, how it went, or we have to see how it went. And if there's anything to be done the next time, then again we can correct. So just like that, even in practice, we need to have these three separate stages. And most of the time people think that when we are practicing, it is very different from our daily life. But when we think about it, of course, the motivation is completely different, because in our daily life, whatever we do it for ourselves. Whether we are sleeping, whether we are walking, whether we are walking, whatever we do, or even eating. So these are all, we do it for ourselves. But in the practice, it's always for, like in our practice, it is for others. It's not like for yourself. We are doing for the other sentient beings with the pure motivation that we are going to benefit the other person. So that is the main difference. But the way we do the practice is very similar to our daily life. And sometimes people tend to forget that, and they find it a little difficult in differentiating between these two. And for the preparation part, so whatever activities that we do, so in the beginning we have to have the motivation that I am going to do this for the benefit of other sentient beings, since we are all practitioners of Mahayana Buddhism or Vajrayana Buddhism, whichever we say. So here the motivation is we are doing things for the benefit for other persons, and not for ourselves. So that is the preparation part. And then after that comes the main practice. So even in main practice, whichever practice we do, so for example, even if we are just making an offering, or if we are just giving something to the Bobo person or Bo family or beggar like that. So normally when we give, it's only like giving, so we are completing the generosity part. But then, as all of you know, that in our practice we have the 6 perfections. We have the generosity, we have the discipline, we have the patience, and we have the diligence, we have the meditation, and then we have the wisdom part, all these 6. So even in this one activity, we can complete all these 6 perfections. So like normally when we are giving, we just give and then we just leave from there. So we are only completing the generosity part. But if we use some wisdom, then only with that act we can complete all these 6 perfections. Like when we are giving, that is obviously generosity. And then when we are giving that, again we can give it peacefully, so that is like happily, so that is like the discipline. And then sometimes when we give something or when we donate something, sometimes the people who receive the donation or people who receive the alms, sometimes they will not show you a happy face, or sometimes they will show an angry face. Sometimes they will act like maybe it wasn't enough or something like that, and we tend to get a little angry. But instead of getting angry, we can just be patient, so that convinces the patient. And then we can do it again and again, so that is like diligence. And then when we are giving it, we have to be thoughtful about it. That is like the meditation. And then when we are giving it, we can use our wisdom when we are giving it. So it completes all the 6 perfections. And it is only one act, but even in one act, we can complete the whole set of 6 perfections. And then even like now, you only think that, oh, you are coming here to receive like a teaching. But even in that, we can complete the whole 6 perfections. Like when you come here, and you can make like little offering of the flower, offering of the water. So that is like the generosity. And then after that, when you are here, you can sit properly, and then you can pay respect not only to the teacher but also to the text that we receive the teaching from, because without the text we cannot understand much. So when we as a practitioner, we also not only need to respect the teacher but also the text, so we don't walk over it, we don't step on it, and we pay little respect to it. So that is like discipline. And like you can help with the setting up or maybe cleaning the shrine hall. So these are all like part of the discipline. And then the third one is patience. And when you are receiving a teaching, not only here, but again in the future, you might be receiving teaching from so many different masters from different places. Sometimes maybe the place where you are receiving the teaching might not be proper. It might be too hot, it might be too cold, sometimes it might be not very clean. And you can have patience with all these things. You can adjust with the hotness or maybe the cold. And sometimes maybe the people who come to the teaching might annoy you, and you can still have some patience with the Dharma brothers and sisters. So there is all like patience. And then when you are listening to the teaching, so you can listen to the teachings with devotion, and that is the diligence. And these days, normally when we have a teaching, normally most of the time, maybe the Lama will speak in Tibetan, and then there will be like a translator, maybe in English or maybe in Chinese. And now, at the present, so I'm speaking in English, and then we have like a Chinese translator. And some of you don't speak English, some of you don't speak Chinese. But then, even when you cannot understand the language, you can still like go through the text. You can contemplate what was taught, or you can just look at the text which will be spoken during the next talk after the translation is done. And then you can compare what your understanding is and what the teacher is going to say. There might be some difference with what you are thinking and what is going to be said in the next step. So these are all like diligence. And then when you are listening to the teaching, you can listen with mindfulness and awareness, and that is the meditation part. And then when you have received the teachings, and if you have like some questions, or if you have like some doubt, you can ask your Dharma brother and sisters, or maybe the teacher, and you can use your wisdom, and that is the wisdom. So even when we are just receiving our teaching, we can still complete all the 6 perfections. Even when we are making offering or giving an alms, we can still complete all these 6 perfections. And almost everything that we do, if we use our mind, if we use our wisdom, it is not only like one act of generosity or like just one act of patience. We can all complete these 6 perfections. And then the third part, which is here, the follow through. And here it is more, since Gampopa was a very highly realized master, and even most of the students were like very intelligent students. So the way here it's taught more like the follow through is like meditating upon emptiness or Mahamudra practice. And since most of us we haven't learned about Mahamudra practice or completion stage, so it might not be suitable for us. What we can do is we can always dedicate the practice that we have done. So even if we do a small offering, or even if we have like a small patience, even if we have like a small diligence, what we do for follow through is we always dedicate the merit. So we dedicate it for all the sentient beings. So that is the proper way for all of us. And then to get enlightenment or to be a realized being, we need to have these three, the preliminary practice, the main practice, and the follow through, all these three. And to get realization, we need to have the motivation to help all the sentient beings. And without this motivation, without the motivation of Mahayana practice, where we make the motivation or where we make the prayers that whatever I do is for the benefit of all sentient beings, whether they are human or whether they are not human, all we have to include. And sometimes people think that maybe if I am angry with someone, or maybe someone disappoints you, you exclude one person, or maybe two people, or maybe some animals. If it happens like that, then we are never going to get realization, or we are never going to get enlightenment. As long as we don't include every sentient beings, we will never be able to get enlightenment. As soon as we exclude one person or one animal, it means we are very far from getting realization. Because loving someone or having compassion for someone is actually very easy. We don't have to be taught loving someone. It comes very naturally to us. Even if you remember when we were kids, nobody teaches us how to love other beings. It comes very naturally to us. So that is our natural thinking, if I'm not mistaken. But all this hate, all this anger, as we grow older, so these are all like taught by our environment most of the time. Sometimes knowingly, sometimes unknowingly, and then as we grow older, we try to label so many things. This is my family, this is my people, this is my religion, and all the others are, these are not my people, not my country people, maybe not from my religion, not from my community. And when these are taught, we tend to get hatred towards the other community or religion, other people or whatever. And all this loving compassion is actually quite easy for all of us, whether we are human beings or whether we are animals or whatever. Even like a wild animal, they also have loving kindness and compassion. They have loving kindness and compassion towards their mother or maybe their kids. But the difference between them and us is we need to have loving kindness to not only our family and friends, but to all the sentient beings. So that is going to be the main difference between the loving kindness that we have and the loving kindness that an animal or God or demigod or whatever they have. So that is the second part of the talk. And then the third one is the page number 5. As for the Dharma, I would like to share with you all. So whenever you see the as for the Dharma, I would like to share with you all. So this is like a different part of the teaching. So now this is the third one. And here we are talking about accumulation and purification. And most of us are very easy to practice accumulation part of the practice. I think it comes quite naturally for most of us. but we tend to forget the purification part. We have to know that since our life is very impermanent, and if when we die, if there is nothing after that, then there is no need to worry for us. But most of us, I think, or maybe all of us know that the life still continues even after the death. And if there is something after the death, then we have to be prepared for that. And if there's nothing after that, even if we prepare, it is not going to be of waste. But if we prepare, then if there's something else or something going on after the death, then in what we prepare, it is going to be of huge help for us in our next life. And then for that, the best preparation is going to be getting enlightenment, or to get or reach the stage of Buddhahood. And to reach the stage of Buddhahood, first we need to have the motivation to help sentient beings. And then for the main practice, we need to help the sentient beings. And then for the dedication part, we again need to have the dedication part. And then after helping the sentient beings, we need to know that we need to continue with all the sentient beings. And then to help sentient beings, what we need to do is we need to have the purification, and then we need to help the accumulations of merit. So just like when we like have a business, and then we need the business to grow. So for that, we need to make more money to come inside the business. So just making more money doesn't, just only making more money doesn't help your business to grow. You also need to know where you are wasting your money from your company. So if you are wasting money from the salary, or if you are buying some unnecessary thing, you also need to know that even from cutting your cost, you tend to save a lot of money for your business. You tend to make more profit for your business. It is not only like making more money and more money, it is also like how you are going to cut the cost of the business. So just like that, even when we are making or even when we are taking the path of Buddhism to get enlightenment, it is not only the accumulation part, we also need to cut where we are doing the wrong things. If we are doing something wrong, then we have to cut that, and then we need to correct them with the right activities. And then what we need to see is, since all of us being a very normal human being, we all have some ego. And when people point to a mistake, we tend to get a little angry. And it is quite difficult for us to accept our mistakes. But what we can do is we can look into ourselves. Instead of somebody else pointing it to you, you can just check yourself how you act from your body, how you act from your speech, how you act from your mind. So what you do from your body, speech and mind, whether it is benefiting others or whether it is hurting others, whether it is making problems for the other beings. So if it is making problems for other beings, it is making you are not doing some good activities. If it is benefiting others, then it means you are doing something good for others. So you always need to check what you are doing from your body, speech and mind. And then from these three activities, from the activities from your body, activities from the speech, activities from your mind, the most important part is the activity of the mind. That is the most important part. Activity of the body and speech, that is important, but it is not as important as the mind. Because sometimes we do what we see is a little different. Sometimes even when we are making offering, or even when we are doing some social cause, it is not because we want to help the poor children. Sometimes it is because maybe we want to be seen by the people. Maybe we will get some applause from the society. Maybe I'll be famous like that. If it is like that, then from the outer appearance, it seems like someone is doing a very good cause. But actually, the main reason is not a good one. It is just because for the benefit of yourself, so that you will be seen more, you will be more famous like that. So in our tradition, or in Mahayana tradition, it is not the act that is more important, it is the motivation or the thinking that is the most important. So if what we think and if what we do both are good, then that is definitely very good. But if we have to decide between the good activity from the body and speech and the mind, we always need to focus on the mind. Why you are doing something? It is for yourself or it is for other. We always need to check, because sometimes the looks or the seeing can be very deceiving. Like for example, when we were young, when we have a teacher or our parents, they might scold us when we don't do something right, when we don't do our homework, or when we don't practice well, whatever we do, they might scold us. But from the outer appearance, it looks like maybe they are scolding us or maybe they are punishing us. But why they are doing that is more important. They are doing that because so that we will be a better person in the future. So we will do our homework, or maybe we will correct our mistake. So the motivation is very important. And sometimes people give us gifts and we think that, oh, that is so very nice. But actually there might be some other reason. When they give you something, they might be expecting something more from you. And from the outer appearance, when people give you something, it seems very good. When people is scolding you, it looks very bad. But we have to know the motivation. And since we cannot judge or we cannot see the motivation of other person, but what we can see is we can see our own motivation. So whatever you are doing, whether you are making offering or whether you are doing something, whether you are joining the puja, whether you are going somewhere, you always need to check your motivation. And if you see some mistake in your motivation, you can always alter it, you can always change it for the better motivation. So even like me, when now, not talking about the other times, but now when anybody sees me, so I'm giving a talk on Buddhism here, and everybody is going to think that, oh, it is a very good action, it is like a very proper action, it is a dharmic action. But if I have the motivation of benefiting all of you who are listening to the talk, then it is definitely a very positive actions. But when I am giving a talk, and if I'm thinking like, oh, after the talk, when there are more people coming, when more people know me, when I get connected to more people, so I will be more famous. And when I know more people, it is going to benefit me in the long run. If I think like that, so even from the outer appearance, it might look like a very dharmic action, but actually it is not going to be a dharmic action if I have that kind of motivation. So it is not the action that is the most important, it is the motivation. Even when I'm giving a talk or even when you are listening, you have to check what your motivation is, whether you are coming here for yourself or whether you are coming here for sentient beings, whether you have like a pure motivation. So from the outer, all of us seems like we are all doing a very great Dharma action, but we need to check our motivation. And even from outside, it might look very positive, but it may not be that positive, and we have to know that the action is not the most important, it is the motivation. And like we said, we have two topics here, purification and accumulation. So in purification, so whenever we do something bad, the first step is we need to know that we are doing something wrong, especially from the motivation. First, we need to see that instead of like just hoping for some other person to point it out for you, because like I said, we being very egoistic, when some other person say that, oh, you are very ignorant, or you are very attached all the time, or you are very jealous all the time, we don't tend to believe that. But we can see ourselves, and then first we need to know what my problem is, whether I get attached easily, whether I get angry easily, whether I get jealous easily. So first we need to see that, and then after seeing that, we have to know what problem lies within me. And then after seeing that and after finding the fault, then we need to do something to clear these faults that are inside us. And then for the accumulation part, we have the relative bodhicitta and the ultimate bodhicitta. And then in the relative bodhicitta, so first we have to know about the impermanence, and then we have to see the defects of samsara, and then with pure motivation, we have to have the motivation of benefiting other sentient beings. We need to act in helping sentient beings, and we also need to have the motivation and also the act, that is the relative bodhicitta. And then for the ultimate bodhicitta, we need to have these three main things. So here, three things must come together. Page number 5, almost the last line. When meditating on ultimate bodhicitta, three things must come together: training from past lives, your own effort, and receiving the Guru's blessing. So these three is a must to know the ultimate bodhicitta. And the first one, training from past life, definitely, since because of our past life, we are all able to connect with the Dharma, and now we are connected with it. So we already have that. And second one, your own effort. Just being connected doesn't make much difference, but we need to put in more effort when we are practicing. And then the third one, we need to receive the Guru's blessing. And for an example, training from past life, because of our past life, sometimes it is very easy for us to understand the Dharma now. And for some of us, since we might not have practiced that much in our past life, it is a little more difficult for us to practice or to understand that. And not only that, even like for an athlete, so some of the athletes are born very tall, very strong like that, and because of the genetics they have. And some people from different countries are not that tall. And obviously when you are tall, strong like that, you might, not only might, you will have like little advantages when you are competing, maybe in the running, maybe in swimming like that. So these are all because from your past life. And just because you are tall and strong again doesn't going to make you gold medalist. You again have to prepare, you have to train. The more you train, the more your height or your strength they will enhance, and there's more possibility of you like going to win any competition that you join in. And if you don't have that much of advantage with your height or with your strength, then you need to put in more effort in your practice. And it might be true, but most of the time, but sometimes it might not be true. But just for an example, I think it is easier for us to understand. But again, just having the height and strength and practicing alone will not make you a very good athlete. You need to have a very good coach for you to train in, who shows you what you are doing wrong when you are running or when you are swimming, how your legs should be, how your hands should be, how your body position should be. So if you have a good coach and if you have like a perfect body, and then if you train well, then there is more possibility for us to win competition. But if you miss any of this, then there is less possibility for us to win. And then training from past life. So even if we have difficulties now, but now we say this is my present life. So previous life was my past life. But again we consider or we rethink this might be the past life for our next life. This is going to be the past life for our next life. So if we don't understand the Dharma well, but again we can still continue practicing, and then in our next life, because we practice or we studied the Dharma in this life, and in our next life it is going to be way easier for us to understand. So we don't have to lose hope. So this can be present life, this can be past life, and this can be future life also if we think about our past life. So these are all just labels, so we have to know about that. and then having a guru and practicing on your own. These two are extremely or the most important part. And it is completely necessary to have a guru or guru's blessing. Without guru, there is no way that we can get enlightenment. And these days, we do see people like saying, "Oh, even without a guru, I can still get enlightenment. I can read the books, or maybe watch teachings or talks from the internet and all." But that is not going to be sufficient. Without guru, it is impossible to get enlightenment. It is definitely a must for all of us who are hoping to get enlightenment. Till now, whoever we read biography of great masters, there is not a single one who didn't have a guru, right from the Gautam Buddha to Marpa, Mila, Gampopa, whoever we study, all of them had a guru. Even our late Rinpoche, he also had a guru. So without guru, it is impossible for us to get enlightenment. And after having a guru, we need to receive the teachings from him or her. And not only just receiving the teachings from him or her, but we need to practice whatever is taught by our guru, and we need to put them into practice. And only if we are able to put them into practice, then there is possibility for us to gain enlightenment. And when we talk about Buddha, most people have the conception that Buddha is the one. Buddha is the only one that was born in Lumbini and then got enlightenment in Bodhgaya. Actually, it is not like that. Buddha is like a destination, it's not like a person. And all of us can be a Buddha. So how we describe Buddha, there is lots of ways where we describe Buddha in our text, in sutras, in tantas. It is lots of definition, but for us the easiest and the most comfortable way to know a Buddha is someone who doesn't have any fault in their body, speech and mind. Like for most of us, or all of us now, we definitely have some fault in our body and speech and our mind. And from these three, we are talking about the mind mostly. And when we have lots of faults in our body, speech and mind, then it means we are just a normal human being. And as we practice, as we minimize our faults from body, speech and mind, and when we minimize it to a very bare minimum or just little, then we become like a bodhisattva, where you see in lots of texts I posted to the Buddha and the bodhisattvas. So bodhisattvas are the ones with very little faults in their body, speech and mind. And then even after that, when you keep on practicing, and when you completely remove away all your negativity from your body, speech and mind, then you become a Buddha. So that is a very easy way to understand about a Buddha. And all of us now, maybe we are just a normal human being. And as we see our fault, as we continue practicing, when we remove our fault from the body, speech and mind, as it gets less and less, then we gradually become a bodhisattva. And then again after that, if we continue practicing, when we remove away all these negativities, then we become a Buddha. And depending on our teacher, depending on our own practice, and depending on our past life, the way we put in effort, some of us might take a few years, some of us might take few lives, some of us might take few days, and it is just like being Olympic gold medals. Some of them, they become gold medalists when they are 15, 16. Some of them, they become like 25. Some of them maybe early 30s, like that. These are all depending on the way they practice, the coach they have, the facilities they have. So even to get enlightenment, there is not like a certain time where you can be a Buddha. It varies among different students and practitioners. And then after meeting the teacher and after receiving the teachings, when we practice, when we put in our effort. So here in Tibetan it says or in English, perfect awakening in one instant. A single instance makes the difference. So in the text or the actual meaning is it is talking about the realization or emptiness or the nature of the mind. As soon as we understand the nature of the mind, there is awakening. But for us, I think it is better to understand as the instant is going to be like the pure motivation for the other sentient beings. When we have that in a very proper way, as soon as we have that, we get very close to realization. As long as we don't have that, we are very far from getting realization. So for us, I think instead of thinking about the realization or the true nature of mind, I think it is easier for us to understand or connect this sentence with pure motivation. And then after the third topic, so now we are talking on the fourth one. So here we are talking about loving kindness and compassion. So even when we are talking about loving kindness and compassion, there are like three different categories here. So here, as it is said, focusing on the sentient beings, focusing on the dharmas, and non-referentially loving kindness and compassion. And like I said, so even these three are like different stages. Like it is just like when we are flying abroad, so there are like different categories when we fly. There is economy class, there is business class, there is first class. So depending on our wealth, we fly according to that. We just thinking that, oh, first class is the best one, so I need to fly that. We don't think like that. So where we are, how we are thinking about that, we buy the ticket. So just like that, I think for most of us, the most important part is the first one. Here focusing on the sentient beings. So we see the sentient beings, we see all the other beings, we see their suffering. And when we see their suffering, we want to get rid of the sufferings that they are bearing. If they are having a very good life, we make effort to have them carry on with all the joy or the happiness that they have. So when we see their suffering, we try to get rid of it. And when we see joy in them, we try to help continue with this joy and happiness. And we continue with that from one being to other being. And until we are able to do for all the sentient beings. And then the second one is all phenomena are like dreams and illusions. So we have to have the realization that everything that we see is not real in nature. It is just like the dreams. Because in dreams, when we see, we get frightened. When we see something very terrible, we get frightened. But then when we wake up, when we look back, we think that, oh, yeah, I shouldn't have been terrified. It was just a dream. We think like that. But for a realized person, even now, which we think is the real world, for them that this one is still like a dream, and for them it is very easy for them to understand everything is like a dream. So when they know that this is like a dream, it is very easy for them to not have any attachment or anger or everything. For them it is being awake from the dream. And then the third one is non-referential bodhicitta. So of course when we talk, we say there is nothing, but actually it is not only nothing. There is something in there. And when we do the practice of Mahamudra and Dzogchen, it is a little easy to understand, but just describing it is very difficult to explain. And the main thing we need to understand is, like I gave the example of all these three bodhicittas, like flying in economy class, business class, and then the first class like that. And we have to know that this doesn't differentiate between how long have you been practicing, or how good your teacher is, or how many teachers you have received teaching from. The way you can judge is you have to see yourself, how much attachment you have, how much anger you have, how much jealousy you have. You have to know that yourself. Other person cannot know what stage you are in. You have to check it for yourself. If you see you have less attachment, then maybe it means you have gained a little bit of realization you are like a good student or better student. If you still have like same attachment like before, like 10 years back, 20 years back, or maybe like yesterday, then it means you haven't progressed in your path. So that doesn't make a difference. Just like even in our life, some people have been doing a business for a very long time, 30 years, 40 years, but still they couldn't make much money. Some they can just start business only last year, and within a year they get very rich. They gain a lot of wealth like that. Some people take a lot of time, some people doesn't take a lot of time. There needs to be like different condition to be rich in our daily life. Just like that, even in our practice, just because you have been practicing for a very long time doesn't mean that you are a better practitioner. You have to have the right teacher, right path, right practice. All these needs to be combined, and then you have to see just not receiving the teaching, but putting these teaching into practice. People tend to forget that it is not the duration, how long you have been following the Buddhism path. It is the duration that you put these teachings into practice, how much you actually do the practice. So most of us think that, oh, like me, I think I've been a monk for almost 30 years now, but I haven't been practicing all these 30 years. It is just a misconception for me that I am a monk for 30 years, so I've been practicing for 30 years. Actually, it is not like that. I can see what I do, how much time I put into practice. So that is more important than just having like a rough idea. Or I've been a monk for 30 years, or maybe I've been practicing for 40 years. So actually this only brings in more ego in our practice, and then we think that, oh, for 40 years, 30 years, 10 years I've been a practitioner and I don't see much progress in my path. But when you check diligently, properly, you will know that in one day how much you are putting time into your practice, and then you will realize that, oh, maybe I've not been putting so much effort or time in my practice, and then you will improve in your practice. And then the fifth one is like talking about realizing the true nature of mind. And then in here we have two different parts. So page number 8, all things are impermanent. So meditate on 8th line here. All things are impermanent, so meditate on the conception of having no attachment to anything whatsoever. So this is the first part. And then the second part is realizing mind is wisdom, so meditate on the conception of not seeking Buddhahood anywhere else. So again, this is like two stages. So for most of us, when we have the understanding of impermanence, then it is very attached to get rid of attachment, jealousy, anger, pride, everything. Because when we know that, oh, I'm not going to be living for a very long time, maybe I'm going to die tomorrow, maybe I'm going to die tonight, the stronger we have that belief, the stronger it is for us to get rid of all these poisons, attachment, jealousy, pride, because most of the time we are thinking about a very long time. So it is very easy for the stronger our faith in impermanent, the easier it is for us to get rid of these poisons. And then the second part is realizing the mind, where we know that everything is an illusion or everything is an emptiness. And when we know that, then it is definitely very easier for the higher beings or those who have understand the meaning of all this. Mahamudra and Rinpoche, whenever they see everything, they know that this is just illusion, this is just emptiness, and for them it is very easy to get rid of all these poisons. So this is the true way how we can remove our poisons. And even these two practices can be condensed into just one practice, which is right on the top of that same page. Do not do any misdeeds, practice the abundant virtue, completely tame your own mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha, where you don't harm other beings, where you just tame your mind. For example, we give the example of wearing a very good shoes when you go for hiking. So when you go to hiking, you cannot cover all the trails, all the path to the top of the mountain with a paved road. what you can do is you can get a very good hiking shoes, you just wear that, and then even if the road or the trail is not so good, you can still complete the journey very easily or happily. But if you try not to buy a good hiking shoes, if you just are hoping for the trails to be very perfect, then it will take a very long time. Or if you try to make the road yourself, then you might not be able to complete in your lifetime to the top of the mountain. What we can do is we just buy our good shoes and then we complete the trek. And just like that, even in our practice, we cannot make all the other beings a Buddha. But what you can do is you can check your mind, check your motivation, you correct that, and with that you will be able to gain enlightenment.